What is engineering? Why should Gen Z study engineering? Gen Z has high rates of individuals entering STEM careers. STEM is
science, technology, engineering, and math.
But why are there still so few women in engineering? Where are the women in engineering? We go to UT in the Netherlands, where we first look at electrical engineering. What is electrical engineering and what are the adversities faced by women in the study?
Electrical engineering, to make it simple, it's everything. I expected something much more women. I thought it would last like a week in electrical engineering.
Welcome. On this podcast, we discuss the questions you've always had, but never asked. Today's guest is from Brazil, and she studies electrical engineering at the University of Twente. She ended up being one of 6 girls out of 100 in her year to sway her from pursuing her study. On the contrary, she's now pushing more women to go into electrical engineering. This is the Gen Z in STEM podcast. I'm your host, Maya June, and I hope you're as curious as I am. Let's get to it. So, Giovana, you've been studying electrical engineering for a bit more than a year now.
Yes.
Until 2 weeks ago, I knew hardly nothing on electrical engineering. So, what is electrical engineering and what does it consist of?
Okay, so electrical engineering, to make it simple, it's everything. So everything that we use today that uses electricity, things, phones, laptops, speakers, antennas, everything that involves electricity is electrical engineering. But it goes further than that. So our brains work with electrical engineering, sound works with electrical engineering. So I would say that electrical engineering can be applied everywhere, and it all depends on which field do you want to apply your knowledge most of. But we can work with plenty of different areas, and it's a very broad study, and that's actually a good point because you're free to be creative on it, to link different areas and discover new appliances of electricity. Yeah.
Wow, so it's everywhere, like in the studio
yes,
right here.
Yes, exactly, everywhere.
Okay. So, and what projects have you worked on for the past
Okay,
years?
so I've worked with quite a lot of projects because the University of Twente is focused on applying knowledge, everything that we learn theoretically, we apply it in real life. So we have labs and we have these big projects in the end of each module that we apply everything that we learned. So in this my first year, I worked with 4 big projects. The first one was a strongman game, the one that we have in arcades that has to measure how strong you are. We built one of these full electric version, and it was really nice because we had some group dynamics that allow us to divide tasks. So each part of the group did one part that they found more interesting, and in the end we link everything together. So it was a very interesting project that we learned a lot of different skills. And on the second module, we had the solar panel boost converter. That was the part that I worked most of. And it was basically how to build a circuit that converts the electricity that we get from the energy of the sun into something that we can actually charge a device, such as a mobile phone or everything else. So basically, it was something that linked the solar energy with the electricity. So that's what we had to do. On the third module, we built a speaker. So that one was a very funny project because we were all in the lab, all different groups with their own mini speakers and sound amplifier for a most fancy term. And we were all testing about how high and how low can we make the frequencies of the sound go. So it was also a very interesting project. And in the last project of my first year was to build an antenna. So we had to build the physical part that was like the mechanism, the dish, for example, that can reflect the frequency of the sound. And we also built the circuit and we designed it. So it was a very, full of tasks module when we had a lot of different knowledge from math, from physics, from linking math with physics like electrodynamics that made it essential for us to build that project. So we had lots of different areas of study. It's a very broad year, let's say, that apply in different areas. But it was very, very productive. So all of these 4 projects, we could have lots of learning and lots of appliances in different areas.
I was going to ask is a bit connected to that. So like in civil engineering, which I take, for instance, we have water, we have construction, we have traffic. So like 3 main sections. It's pretty broad, especially in bachelor's, with many different things. Would you say that in electrical there's like specific like subsections? And if so, which is your favorite one?
Yeah, we have quite a lot of subsections, and some of them are power electronics, for example, that we can convert energy, solar energy to electricity, or even the energy of the windmills or some other kind of energy. And this is the power engineering, that's a very big one. And then we also have robotics, that's famous. And then, yeah, the antenna part of radio frequencies. So we have these parts, let's say, of electrical engineering, but sometimes they are interconnected. So that's why I think they're not that famous, let's say. But they're all very cool. But my favorite one, I think, for now, it's the part of the modulation of the frequencies, like the sound or even the wave. And a little bit of this energy part, I found it really interesting. Yeah.
That's really nice. Okay, and so, I mean, maybe we should clarify because so here we have like, you know, it's split into 4 modules. We don't have like the semester kind of thing, and we have to do a project. But what you're talking about, it seems really like hands-on, like you get to build things and stuff like that. And like, I find that really interesting because in civil, so we have like projects, but we're not really like, so we're working on it, we have a final design, but we don't actually get to, you know, build a parking garage, build a dam or reservoir in the Blue Nile. Like, we're not actually, like, seeing this. So how is it, like, working in the, like, lab or, like...
It's amazing. Basically, the biggest advantage of electrical engineering is that everything that you learn, every single subject, every single module, we can apply in real life. So we can build everything inside a lab. So when you start to do electrical engineering, you realize that you can build everything on your own. Or not, sometimes not on your own with a group, but let's say you can be creative to explore every kind of construction settings, let's say. So basically, for example, a speaker that before you had no idea how it works. When you start to work on the module, learn the theory, and then apply small tasks in the lab, and then in the end do this gigantic project of the speaker. It's very interesting because then before you didn't know how a speaker worked, and then after you could build your own speaker. So let's say what I really think it's really special about electrical engineering is that everything you learn you can build. And this is really good for your learning and to amplify your creativity.
Yeah, so then, like, since now you've learned things and you have the knowledge from what you've learned in, like, the past year or more, did you ever get moments where you're like, oh, I can do this, and you were like, maybe I can do this in my house, or any projects you kind of did since you had the knowledge now?
Yes, that's actually a problem because you start looking at everywhere around you and think that you can fix it with electrical engineering. So, for example, I was in my apartment and I was having like a birthday party, and we were thinking, oh, maybe we could build some small speakers and put in these corners. And for example, I was talking to one of my coordinators, and she was telling me that she made a gift for one of her friends, that she made like a circuit that did something, and I was like, oh my god, so now with new ideas I can build gifts for my friends. So let's say it broadens your horizons, so you can think about everything that you want to build, and that's really interesting.
That's really nice. Okay, so now like going a bit back, imagine before you were here, you're in Brazil, you kind of like think you said you wanted to study engineering, but you don't know like why or which one. Sorry. How did you decide to choose electrical engineering?
Okay, so in Brazil, I was in high school and I loved all subjects. So I'm a really curious person. So I always looked into all kinds of subjects, and I was really interested in learning itself. And then everybody told me that I had to do medicine because that was the option when everybody likes everything, they say. But I was like, deep down inside me, I knew I loved math, and that was my favorite subject. So I was like, but I really want to follow something math related, maybe physics related. And then someone suggested engineering, and I decided to look into that. So I saw that there were plenty of different types of engineering. I even considered doing biomedical engineering or mechanical. But in the end, my parents even suggested to me, like, have you ever thought about electrical engineering? We don't know for sure what is that. Do you want to do some research about it? And I was like, oh, I also don't know a lot about electrical engineering. Let me do my research. And then I found out that electrical engineering is really broad and you can apply in different areas. And even if you think like, oh my God, electrical engineering itself is not my thing, you can do a minor in biology or a master's in some other area and apply that knowledge somewhere else. So it's a very flexible study where you can apply in different areas, and that's why I think it's really special. That's why I chose it. Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool that you didn't necessarily go for what was like, well, not the easiest, but what came natural, and you like were leaded by your like curiosity. That's like,
yeah, I decided to choose something that it wasn't on my domain of knowledge, so something that I didn't know a lot before. Before I didn't know anything about circuits or electrical engineering itself, but I always wondered how a television works, how a computer works, and in the beginning it's a bit scary, like I don't have no idea how this works. How do I know that I'm gonna like it? But I trusted my gut that, okay, I like math, I like physics. Let's give this a chance. It seemed interesting. And yeah, I found one of my passions. Yeah.
So there's no one in your family that has already done engineering?
No, I'm the first engineer of my family. Yeah, proud. My brother is now studying also engineering, so maybe we can add some members in the family.
Follow in your footsteps.
Yes.
That's very nice. Okay. So another time step. So now you're here, you've arrived, you've done your fundamental year, and you're like going to start electrical engineering. So in the first month of studying here, what were some challenges you faced? Maybe like also was there any prejudice from your male peers to being a woman in electrical engineering?
Okay, so my biggest challenge, I think, was to face the ratio between women and men in electrical engineering, because I expected something much more women, I'd say. I didn't expect that huge reality of the difference between men and women. So we arrived there and it's me and 5 more female in the middle of this huge male environment, let's say. So it's a bit challenging because people started to state some stereotypes when relating to you. Or I have a friend of mine that when I just moved him here and I was talking to him, and he was telling me, gee, I thought you would last like a week in electrical engineering. I was like, why? He's like, I don't know, you don't look like an electrical engineer. And that really got me because I was like, oh my God, the stereotypes really hit sometimes. But I feel like with time, we kind of prove the right to be here. So now it's a bit better. But I would say that in the beginning, especially when they don't know if you're good enough to be there, there's a different kind of way they look at you, the way they respect you. But with time, you can earn their trust. And yeah, I expect in the future this to change a lot. Like in this new year now, followed mine, I've heard there's 11 girls. So it's already, I'm from 6 to 11, it's already a huge change. And before me, the maximum was 3 girls per group. So we're seeing a huge improvement, let's say, and I expect that to be equal ratio in the future, at least.
So from the moment where someone's like, well, you don't look like an electrical engineer, so like from these obstacles, how did you overcome them, or was there anything you like managed to do to help you with your studies or in general?
Yeah, so basically what helped me most with my studies was to study itself, so let's say. So basically, I didn't focus on the stereotypes or focus on the subject itself and making really good friends. So in my own environment, even though there's this big difference and these big stereotypes, I found people that are open-minded, that were willing to look at me like the person that I actually am, yeah. And I made really good friends and we support each other and yeah, focus on my learning and realizing that if I like it or not, and not about what people told me that I should do or not. Yeah. So basically I would say if you're facing this difficulty between being a female in a male environment, just focusing on finding your good people around you, yeah. And focus on your goals. So if it's hard because of your stereotypes, focus on your goals and the good people and be optimistic because things will get better.
I totally agree. Because like good people, that sense, because like it like you said, there's a few other, like there were other women in your course. There was 5 others, and sticking with some women sometimes like helps, but also just good people. I mean, in a course there's gonna be good people where you can like create study groups and collaborate. Just helps you
Yes,
get
every
through
time
it.
you study together, you can kind of exchange knowledge. So if you know something more about a subject, you can be like, oh, I explain you this and you explain me that. So it's kind of exchange. And that's really useful because sometimes by yourself, I feel like we can go far until a certain point. But if you have other people around you that support you, that you can learn together, you can go even further. So,
Yeah, and it brings like different points of view, which makes you like grow even more.
Yes.
Which is really nice. That's great. Okay. So now I'm gonna go more into like the data, but I've heard like you seem to know a lot about how many women there are in your course. But later on, I'm gonna be talking to someone from mechanical and chemical, and
Okay.
so with civil, I'm wondering what you think from like most being like 1, so most women to male ratio, and less being 4. Where would you rank electrical engineering out of chemical, mechanical, civil? and,
What, like how
how
bad
much?
do I
No,
feel?
yeah, more like what's the female to male ratio? Which one has like the least?
I would say electrical engineering. But that's because when people think about electrical engineering, they normally think about guys programming or some thing that we're not sure of what they do, let's say. So it's just some tech people that we're not sure what they do. They just randomly build a computer and no one knows what they're actually doing, what it's actually engineering about. And yeah, I feel like sometimes there's like this big step of being afraid of what is electrical engineering. Like sometimes people ask me, what do you do? And I say electrical engineering, and they're like, oh my God, it must be so hard. I don't know how you do this. And yeah, for me, I actually like it. So for me, it's something I enjoy it. And even though it's hard, it's challenging. And I feel like if it wasn't challenging, I would get bored very fast. So I would say that being hard, it's actually a good point in electrical engineering because keep yourself motivated to study even more. And yeah, I feel like this ratio is going to become better in the future. I'm actually working on a side project for that. Yeah, so I'm now started to help organizing the open days for electrical engineering at the University of Twente. And I want to show not only for women, but also for men, what is actually the reality of an electrical engineering. What do we actually do in our daily lives? What do we learn? What is our EE kit that can you open and see everything that we have inside? And ask questions to students and actually see how broad is electrical engineering and how fun is also to do that. Yeah.
And so in open days, so you've been to a few open days.
Yes.
Would you say there's like, in those open days, are there like women coming to that? And if not so many, how do we get more women to come to open days to try it out?
I feel like I saw really few women there, but I feel like to get more women into that, we have to start at school, at actually high school or even middle school, to open their minds and say like engineering, it's fun, it's not only boring, and even though it's challenging, this can be a good thing. It can help you to be ambitious, to want to learn more, and what you can do with engineering after your studies, this is a prize that it's a gift, let's say.
Yeah, I'd say also
Yeah.
engineering's a lot of problem solving. It's just like going ideas and
Yes, but I
innovation.
feel like to get more women to go
Yeah.
to this kind of events, we have to spread the news that electrical
Yeah.
engineering or even other types of engineering are, let's say, an option. Because sometimes they don't even consider that because it's not something that they've seen before or they'd heard before. So if we spread the word that electrical engineering or even other engineerings are very interesting and are an option for them, I feel like that will help a lot. Yeah.
Okay. So lastly, imagine like you a year and a half before you started electrical engineering. So before you embarked on this journey, what advice would you give to yourself before you started?
I would say just hold on because sometimes and trust your potential because sometimes you're just there and people look at you and like, what are you doing here? Or if something gets really hard, because sometimes the subjects can get really hard and challenging and you're like, oh my God, am I good enough? Am I going to get through this? And you have to trust yourself and know your worth and just hold on, because if sucks gets hard, you know that if you work and do your best, they will eventually work out for you. So I would say just stick to it and give it a chance. Yeah.
Nice. Great. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. See that you're like so passionate about what you're doing and ambitious. And I know there will be some girls that will at least try electrical engineering just from like hearing you speak and seeing someone like you is in the field. So thank you
very much. If that happens, that will be the biggest gift I
Let's get 14 girls.
Yes, let's get them. Yeah, it's fun. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If you made it to here, thank you. This is the very first episode of Gen Z in STEM. And stay tuned, because in 2 weeks we'll be releasing the next episode, which is about chemical engineering. See you soon.